Welcome back to another episode of the Mile 40 podcast. I'm excited to dive right in today. Today we have Dr. Andrew Shehata. Andrew currently is finishing his internal medicine residency in New Jersey. He's going to be starting his fellowship in gastroenterology this coming July. He's always loved health, fitness, and bodybuilding. We're going to dive into that. Throughout the years, even in medical school and residency, he's taken pride in still cooking his meals, meal prepping, working out as best as he can to stay healthy, and always working on improving his physique. Throughout med school and into residency, he's always wanted to be a GI doctor. He wanted not only to help people who suffer with GI malignancies, most notably colon cancer, but to help those who suffer from GI issues and help incorporating his knowledge and own lifestyle practice of nutrition to instill it onto his patients. Andrew, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Troy. It's an absolute pleasure.
Of course, man. Of course. I kind of cut off the bio, and then that's starting to become a routine on this podcast. I'm getting these elaborate bios here, and I could spend minutes going through it, but I figured would save time to run through everything live. One of the things about you that kind of stands out, and I've known you now for several years, is the fact that you've gone down this path that you chose to pursue medicine, in particular GI. And I always knew you because of the ethic that you put into the gym. And that's one of the things that stood out about you. But I remember when you started going down this course, I thought to myself, I'm sure he's going to try to keep it up, but I can't imagine someone finding the time in the midst of what he's pursuing right now to keep it up at the level you were going at. So let's start there a little bit with regards to the intersection of your love for fitness and the career that you're chasing down.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said. Even myself, at times I had doubts, if I could be able to still do what I do fitness wise while going through medical school and whatnot. But I love it. I love fitness. I love nutrition aspect. I love cooking my own meals. I just love feeling healthy. I love feeling good about myself. I don't think people should live their life, not feeling good about themselves, feeling sluggish, tired, the weight gain, these kind of things. So my love for fitness and passion been there since maybe 2013. And then obviously once I started getting into medicine, with medical school and whatnot, then I started to say, hey, look, I can actually make an impact on people's lives. Besides just being that doctor that writes prescriptions all day and whatnot, I didn't want to be that kind of a doctor. It's kind of like what you said. I wanted to set my own path. I wanted to take the patient and say, hey, let's dive deep. What's really going on? How can I make you healthier? How can I make you better? How can I make you more optimized? So with that knowledge and what I, do on a daily basis with fitness and nutrition and my medical knowledge, that's how I wanted to incorporate it now, and just help as many people as I can.
I love that. And, when we spoke before we recorded, you told me that you always wanted to go into gastroenterology. Why? Why gastroenterology?
Yeah, good question, because
it's definitely an interesting place to be.
It is. You're dealing with a lot of holes, a lot of poop. To be quite honest with you, a few reasons. One, it was the subject in med school that always clicked with me. I always understood it the best. I can read that chapter all day and get it, versus if I study the heart, I can read it all day. I hate it. I can never get it. So that was one reason, but also really because of the nutrition aspect. A lot of people don't realize this, the mind to gut aspect, right? And I'm a firm believer that it all starts there. If you take care of your body, you put in the right things in your body, right? You're going to be amazing elsewhere with everything else. And also because I wanted to make a difference with those with colon cancer. I knew I never wanted to do surgery, where a lot of them can, resect tumors and these kind of things. I didn't want to go the hematology, oncology route. So for me, gastroenterology was the perfect balance, because I can not only, diagnose patients, but at the same time, technically, I can treat them by means of colonoscopies, let's say, right? Colonoscopy is one of those interventions where you go through, the anal canal and the colon. And if you see a polyp, right, which can be potentially become cancerous, I can remove it on the spot.
Yeah.
and that can save someone's life.
So I'm guessing you're the kind of person that eats to fuel, right? Like you are constantly fueling yourself and kind of being conscious of what goes into your body. We even talked about in your bio, you meal prep every week. Let's talk a little bit about that for the listeners to kind of give them insight into some of the things that they should be considering. Like I myself, over the last year, have been really conscious, and even though I'm a runner, have been really conscious of my protein intake. And it didn't hit me for a long time how important getting my macros were, especially when it comes to protein as a runner, because you kind of think, oh, like I'm not a bodybuilder, I'm not in the gym all the time, it's not that important. But when you think about recovery and what proteins do for recovery, it's actually very important. So let's talk about that a little bit, and maybe not in the context of a runner or a bodybuilder just such as yourself, but maybe the average person.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it first comes down to consistency. And it's kind of like what you said. Myself, I don't eat for taste, I eat for fuel. I literally eat the same foods every day. I've had the same breakfast for the past few years now. Don't get me wrong, I love to go out, to dinner with the girlfriend, enjoy some nice food here and there when I can. But first and foremost, it's all about consistency. And the biggest, misconception that a lot of people have, unfortunately, is that one, dieting has to be boring or it has to be difficult, or you have to go to such super extremes where you have to restrict yourselves. So even if you're just a normal person, right? If you're not that active, whether you're a runner or a weight trainer or anything like that, it's still important knowing what you're putting in your body. Most of the people that I see or that I deal with at the hospital, whatever it is, I ask them, hey, what do you eat for breakfast? And they'll tell me, oh, just a bowl of cereal, a granola bar. That's not how you fuel yourself. That's not nutritious. That gives you zero nutritional content, right? Versus having, whatever it is, some oatmeal, some eggs, right? You're having your balanced macronutrients, as you said. And for you yourself, you even mentioned it. Once you noticed or you recognized the macros you needed to hit, then everything else became a little bit more, you started to notice your progress. A lot of people don't realize how much food they're intaking and at the same accord, not. So I think those are definitely important things that people have to realize and just learn.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. And I think a lot of time people hear the word macros and they think, oh, that's only for the pros, or that's really only for the real gym rats. Like I don't need to worry about macros. What do you have to say to someone who kind of like goes about it that way, from a mindset perspective?
You'll never make progress that way. You'll never, especially for those that want to lose weight. Unless you're counting exactly what it is that you're putting in your body, you'll never know. A lot of people say, yeah, I'm going to have a salad for lunch. But that salad, right, it sounds good, but it consists of all the oils, the dressings, higher fat content items, like the avocados, which are good, don't get me wrong, but it's never the serving size, right? A lot of people don't realize how much a serving size is. Like for me, I weigh my food out, right? So a lot of people don't realize what an actual cup of rice is, what a serving size of peanut butter is, avocado is, so for those people that say, hey, that's not for me, I just want to lose weight. Really, at the end of the day, it's how much you're putting in versus how much you're putting out. So at least you can control how much you're putting in. That gives you the accurate, guidance and just how to proceed with your diet, really.
Absolutely. I wasn't expecting to go down this route, but again, that's the beauty of this show is sometimes it takes on a life of its own. And no doubt about it, if anyone listening has any questions, I'm sure Andrew would love to field them for you. I could go down a rabbit hole with regards to this topic, but I want to dive into a little bit around your journey. I know from knowing you that this path wasn't easy at all. I know that, people who knew you before you decided to go down this route, saw you as a gym rat, saw you as someone who, was kind of an independent thinker. that, was clearly beating to the tune of his own drum. And then, once you decided to take this route, like I mentioned when we kicked off this episode, it was hard to believe that you were going to continue to succeed doing that and also get to this goal. I want to talk a little bit about some of the difficulties that you faced along the way. So walk us through some of it.
So I definitely had a lot of difficulties. For whatever reason, my whole life, I've always been like that underdog. Don't know why, so just starting off, with college, right? College went pretty well. Took my MCAT, I did horrible, right? MCAT is the exam that you have to take before you get into medical school. And I did horrible on it. I pretty much failed it, really. I had to take it, I think, another 2 tries. And in between that, by the time I graduated college, I had a 2-year gap before I even got into medical school. I had to do a master's program. Even then, I didn't get accepted that following year to that same school where I did my master's. But I kept pushing. I didn't give up. I knew the goal and the dream that I had. I refused to give up on it. So after 3 long years after graduating college, great, finally accepted into med school. And at that point, I moved to West Virginia from New York, which it itself was a horrible transition. I thought West Virginia was going to be great, but it's not like home. It's not like New York. No. So that added a lot of stress as is. But even then, when I started, I always heard everyone say, or make fun of me, that I wasn't going to be able to continue the gym and eating well. And once I'm in med school, I'm going to lose it all and gain a whole bunch of weight. I refused. I refused to be another number. I refused to be another person that goes, through this route or just in life and go down that path. I refuse. I mean, even then, a lot of people were surprised that I got accepted. At least at that time, up until recently, you would have never known that I was involved in this field or trying to get into this field. I never posted things online and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then when I got to medical school, first 2 years were rough. I went through a lot. I mean, I was very depressed, being away from home, being around, a culture and a group of people that didn't understand me. They couldn't relate to me. I couldn't relate to them. I was probably one of the most ethnic people that was there, right? A lot of my classmates were from West Virginia. They never stepped foot outside of there.
Yeah.
But either way, as I went through it, I went through med school, at least the first 2 years with no issues, right? The classes, the core classes. And then, one of my biggest downfalls was that I failed my step 1 boards. And I'm okay saying that. A lot of people would probably say, oh, no, why are you saying that? That's a bad look. Man, I don't care. You have to embrace the failures. Without all these failures that I have, I wouldn't be as successful as I am currently. So I failed step 1. And what's funny is when I failed it, they told me, they said, you now have a very low probability to even get accepted for residency. Definitely good luck trying to go back home to do residency in New York or New Jersey, right back home around here. And also they told me that I'm going to need a few months now to study. I said, no way. I'm studying as we speak. I'm taking it in 4 weeks. Because they were trying to push me back.
Yeah.
To delay my graduation because of it. I refused. I said, I'm studying right now. I'm taking it. I actually already paid for my test. Thank you very much. Took it in 4 weeks. And every week they were emailing me saying, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And there were periods of time where I had a little bit of self-doubt, I'll be honest. But I used all of that as fuel. I took that test. I crushed it. Handed it to them. They were surprised. They couldn't believe it. After 4 weeks, I crushed it. I pretty much doubled my score somehow by the grace of God. So that was one setback, right? And then the 3rd and 4th year, right, is rotations. 3rd year was still rough. I was still in West Virginia. A lot of ups and downs with that. And then 4th year, which was 2020, 2020, pretty much at the start of the pandemic, just because I had no way to come back to New York, New Jersey to do rotations and showcase myself, I didn't match. I didn't match residency. You know,
Interesting.
no one knows that. And like I said, I'm okay saying that now. I have no shame because there's thousands of people, thousands of med students that go unmatched. They don't have a residency spot. I've known people that have had to wait 3-4 years just to get residency. So that itself was, obviously a failure in my end, but a blessing because pretty much, right, the pandemic happened. And then I kept reaching out to programs. I said, I refuse to go by a year after graduating med school and not starting residency. Impossible. So I was emailing program after program after program every single day. I would pre-draft emails and then send them all that morning. And I had one program reach out to me. I actually had a few, but one of them reached out to me and said, hey, you open for an interview? We have spots open. I took it within 5 minutes. The program director said, if I send you the contract now, will you sign it? I said, I'll personally come here to New Jersey and start right now as we speak.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And thankfully there, boom, I got my internal med residency.
So to recap, you failed your MCATs. You failed step ones. You did not get into a residency. But one of the things that I love about this is that, and this came up on the podcast before, this is a field that is constantly weaning people out. Like that is what it is known for. And, you had several openings to just say, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. But that didn't even seem like it was an option once throughout this process. And so, my next question is, who are you fighting? You fighting yourself? Are you fighting, the idea that other people maybe didn't think that you would make it? Or is it really just this deep commitment to making an impact? And it could be a mixture of both, but, let's dive into your psyche a little bit.
It's definitely a mixture. It's one, I have high standards for myself. I have high standards for myself. I have high standards for how I want to live, how I want to continue living. But really why I do it is because, like I said, I've always been an underdog for whatever reason. I always keep to myself, stay in my own lane. And every time I've gone through, these stages, I've had people try and stop me or have just doubted me, been negative towards me. And, part of the fight is, internally, but against them. I take that energy. I take those comments, I take all these things and I remember them. It sounds dark, but that's how sometimes you have to go to those kind of places.
That's where MJ always went. Jordan always heard everything.
I took things very personally. Oh, you said I can't do it? No problem. You can't do it. Don't put self-limitations on me. Maybe you can't, I can't. Actually, I'm doing it right now as we speak. So a lot of it is for those people that are always against me. But even more so as I've matured and have grown older is to do it for the people that have supported me. While I have a lot of people who unfortunately have been against me, I also at the same accord have a lot of people who have supported me and have been there for me, have stuck by my side, have checked in with me. So it's for those people to do right for them. And it's to make an impact. I didn't go to medical school. I didn't sacrifice all these years. I mean, by the time I'm done with fellowship, it's going to be almost like 20 years worth of schooling. I didn't go through all of this to just be an average doctor. I refuse. I have phenomenal colleagues. I have phenomenal doctors that I've worked under and learned from, but I refuse to be just like the typical doctor. I want to make an impact. And that's why I do what I do, personally with fitness and nutrition, because how dare I tell someone to live a healthier life if I can't do it myself? So I take pride in not only talking it, but walking it. And I have probably one of the busiest schedules you can imagine. Even when I'd be post 24-hour call, I would still work out that next day while most people just want to sleep all day.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a mix, but I definitely do get to those dark places where it's late at night. I'm studying for, a board exam currently. I'm studying stuff for the GI fellowship. And I think, and I think about all those comments, even when I would rotate on the GI service. I would be up at 4 a.m, driving to the hospital. Many mornings I was just in tears, because I'm asking myself, is it worth it? I have so and so telling me, good luck, you're not going to get accepted to this fellowship. But I thought about all of it, and
It's so interesting, and you kind of got my mind going as you were talking about this. There's that transition period when you go from finding fuel off the people who say that you can't and people who are projecting their own limitations, and then realize that you do what you do for those who support you and those who are behind you. And I feel like I could relate to that a lot. There was definitely a big portion of what I did for myself was fueled by constantly being told that I can't or that I won't. And then I got to a point where I accomplished those things. And then I realized like there was a lot of value in continuing to do them for the people who continue to support me. My question is, it almost feels like it's easier when you're surrounded by people who tell you that you can't. And when you're now kind of embracing the people who support you, it's almost a little harder to crack new codes or to like get to that next level. Is that something that you agree with, or is it just me? Because like at the end of the day, like those people who project self-limiting beliefs, like little do they know that they are giving you like ammo every single time.
You said it, ammo. I thrive off of these kind of situations. I mean, just up until recently when I tried to get the fellowship, up until the very last second, once I signed my contract, I dealt with these things. So I definitely thrive off of people who have any kind of limitations that they try and put on me, even during residency, right? I'm no different than the other doctors I work with. We all have the same 24 hours. And all the time they'll tell me, how do you have time? There's no way you're going to have time to go to the gym. I don't have time, this and that. Okay, no problem. You don't, I do. And I'm doing it. So I definitely thrive off more when I have those doubts because it pushes me. And at the same accord, yes, I'll do it for those that support me. But really that main drive is from those that just say you can't do it. I love that because when they tell me that I can't, not only do I do it more and I do it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I continue to prove, humbly, I can say this with all my downfalls, I've continued to prove it time after time after time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, once you have that formula down, there's no walking away from it at that point. And you apply it really to everything that you do in life. And that's something that I've noticed about you too. As much as, at the forefront, you see, what you do in terms of your career, but I also see you doing it at the gym. And I also see you doing it in terms of how you handle your interpersonal relationships. Like, when it comes to handling your own interpersonal relationships, you've never swayed from being the person that you are. And that's something that's always kind of struck me about you is that you do things the right way because you truly believe in building character and integrity and letting that lead the way. And so kudos to you for kind of applying it across the spectrum in your life.
Keep the same energy, whatever it is that you're doing. Like for me, I can't stand people that are they act a certain way towards one group or to this person, to that person, or they treat this part of their life one way versus another. For me, it's keep the same energy all across the board. I am who I am. Some people don't like it. Some people are intimidated by it. Some people look at it in the wrong way. It's nothing that I'll ever change.
I believe it was Jay-Z. I am what I am. You could like it or love it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And hey, look, that's how you keep people around you that are quality people and that actually care for you. Yeah. I've lost many people along the way.
Yeah.
And I've lost out on many friendships and X, Y, and Z because I didn't conform to what, they would like in someone. And I refuse to ever settle. You know,
Yeah.
you owe it to yourself not to do that.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that that's a distinguishing factor, I think, amongst a lot of people who succeed in their crafts is on the outside, it could seem like, oh, they must have a lot of people around them. But the truth of the matter is, in order to really achieve your goals and to get to where you want to go, it's like a process of just dropping people like along the way and, kind of refining that circle. And when you get to where you're at, you might be surrounded by just a handful of people who are able to stay true to your core values. And so that's something that's really unique to, I think, success. And I think that's one of the misconceptions out there is a lot of times people see successful people and they assume they must have a lot of people around them. But I think successful people, especially people who are really distinguished in their industries or in their crafts, are probably pretty lonely because it requires that. Any thoughts on that?
No, look, that's spot on. In life, I've learned this, I had to disconnect myself to connect the dots. So, as I went through everything in life, right, there were many times I could have dropped the gym and just went out and partied with people. Could have drank food, this and that, but it would have brought no value in my life, right? Many times, even in med school, same thing, right? Instead of being at the gym or studying late at night, instead of going out, partying with everyone, I stayed home. I kept to myself. I had a nice home cooked meal and I would study. And along the way, I realized that, yeah, you do have to be a little bit selfish in order to grow. Especially if you have people around you who aren't in the same mind state as you and they just don't get what you yourself envision. You can't keep those people around you, or you can't just conform yourself for them. And then that's how you lose sight of your own goal, right? There are many opportunities. Many times I've been, made fun of or tried, people try to peer pressure me to do X, Y, and Z, skip this, skip that. And I refused.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said. It definitely can be lonely, but there's beauty to it.
Yeah.
Knowing
I
that
agree.
I don't need a whole crew. I don't need a whole, entourage to carry me. I'm my own man. But at the same time, I think it's important being a man of the people, at the same time. But for myself, yeah, I have a very, very small, tight-knit crew. And it's only gotten lower as the time has gone. Just a lot of people don't understand what it is that I'm trying to accomplish in life. And if you're not with it, that's okay. No problem. I wish you the best of luck. You're not paying my bills. You're not paying for the watches that I want to buy, the cars, the house, what I want to do for my own family, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You're not doing that for me. I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I always live by that phrase. Sometimes I have to disconnect myself. I have to disconnect to connect the dots.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, as you were speaking about that, it's a different kind of quote unquote loneliness. Like there's solace and there's peacefulness to it. And it's not the kind of loneliness that, leads you to ask yourself, like, why doesn't anyone like me? It's more around like, you're following your own internal higher calling and, it's yours. Like not a lot of people are going to be able to get to that level. And so, that makes complete sense. I want to talk a little bit about, where you see yourself going in terms of aligning your passion for fitness with your career. And I see you've been doing a little bit of that already, but let's kind of give the audience some insight.
Yeah. So I definitely stepped out of my comfort zone with that. I'm not a big social media guy, but I realized that I have a skill, I have an opportunity that I can take advantage of to really make a difference. Kind of like what I said before. I didn't go through all of medical school, all of this training just to be the typical general doctor that comes in and out, sees his patients, writes some prescriptions, and that's it. No way. And also, I didn't commit, a lot of my life really to fitness and nutrition and just let that go to waste too, right? Where it's not about being selfish in that aspect, is I should take that so I can help others. So now that I'm transitioning, I'm going to be, starting my fellowship in gastroenterology. My goal is to, like I said before, showcase that I not only, talk it, but I walk it. So that, and I've had many patients, they've seen me, they've seen how I present myself, and they say, hey, you look good. Tell me, what is it that I can do? How can I be healthier? It strikes them a bit versus some of my other colleagues, with all due respect. So besides handling the gastroenterology aspect of, the medical part, dealing with those with colon cancer, ulcers, these kind of things, right? GI issues. I want to now be able to take what I know and work with patients and work with people to just make them healthier. I don't want them to be started on the cholesterol medications. I want them to get better and healthier so that they don't need to get to that stage. I don't want to help you when you're already there.
Yeah.
I want to help you before.
Prevent you. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's all about preventative. Don't get me wrong. Look, there are medications that people do need to take for X, Y, and Z disease states, but I think a lot of it can be avoided.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's what I think my calling is. Even a company that I just joined recently, a telehealth platform, I've been able to work with so many individuals, especially a lot of bodybuilders, who focus a lot on the outside, but not internally. And when they're able to sit down with me, knowing that there's no judgment because I understand what it is that they're doing, they feel more comfortable with me and they're more willing to listen to me. Hey, you got to just calm down with X, Y, and Z. Hey, you got to do this a little bit better. Hey, I would cut back on this. They do it. I've had many people already just within these 6 to 8 months, have had follow-ups with me, come back to me and say, hey, I'm off my blood pressure meds. Hey, look at my blood work, my kidney function, my liver function, all looks good. So that's kind of the approach that I want to take it. I'm taking it, and I plan on doing even more with it, for sure.
As a runner, there's nothing I love more than to explore new areas when I travel. For years, I've had to deal with the hassle of packing up loads of sweaty, smelly, wet articles of clothing on my way back home. And for years, I believed that there was no better option than the plastic bag that I had to scour to find on the last day of my trip. Then I was introduced to the Cama bag, and it changed everything about how I travel. Designed for us all, from yogis to endurance athletes and everyone in between, Cama's premium signature bag layers innovative fabrics that preserve your favorite gear for all your activity to come. The Cama bag is constructed using durable, high-quality fabrics. Surrounded by a thick, waterproof shell, the unique inner layers work together to absorb odor and wick moisture. Gone are the unpleasant smells, bacteria growth from sustained wetness, and those single-use plastic bags that, quite frankly, accomplish nothing. Visit www.camafit, spelled CAMAFIT.com, and use code MILE40 to take 15% off your order and enjoy the endless odor and moisture-free days ahead. The Cama bag absolutely changed the game for me as a runner, and I know it will do the same for you. I want to ask you really quick, and this is from an outsider's perspective. I know a lot of doctors. I know a lot of people who've been through med school. And I feel like the environment that was cultivated throughout med school and into the career makes it very difficult for doctors to not only just be healthy, but to even avoid going down the route of, drinking more than other careers, for instance, just because your free time is so limited and you probably need to let loose a little bit. And I'm not necessarily saying it's the best way to, but I feel like there's tremendous pressure in your field in particular. And a lot of times as a patient now, like I pick up really quickly on doctors who have bad habits themselves, whether it's bad habits around food, around drinking, around smoking, whatever it may be. And I just want your take on that with regards to, I understand it's an industry that's really slow moving. Like there's not going to be a radical change tomorrow to alleviate any of this.
Right.
But is it even being talked about? Is it being acknowledged?
Not at all, to be honest. And that's the unfortunate part. And it's kind of what you just said it. These things won't change tomorrow, probably won't change in a year. They won't maybe change in 5 years.
Yeah.
But you know what? So what? Even though I'm one man, I'm one person, I'm one human being. The way I look at it is whatever it is that I can do, you never know who it is that you're going to touch, who it is that you're going to impact that day, and the impact they themselves will have.
Yeah.
I've had many med students that I've taught, during residency, and they've seen me, with what I do, on the outside, how I present myself, carry myself. And they've come to me and they said, how do you do it? Help me. And I've helped a few of them who've stuck with it, and they're as happy as can be, because it's exactly what you said, with the medical school route. The issue is there's always something going on. You're always pressured. And not for nothing, you're in a room filled with probably some of the most book smart people.
Yeah.
So when you're in a room like that, you can feel dumb. For me, look, I'll be honest, I was never the highest scorer on exams. I'm not the best test taker. I'm, with all these kind of things. But my work ethic, I will outwork any of them any day, and it shows. And I've had many patients that have, I've had encounters with, and they've had phenomenal educated doctors in the past, but they said their bedside manner sucks.
Mm.
And that completely turned them off.
Yeah.
Me, I spend the time with them. I listen to them. I talk to them, understand what it is that they're going through, dig deep a little bit. Never once they asked me, oh, what did you score on your boards? They took how kind I act to them and, appreciated that and stuck, with it. So, the culture of medicine, unfortunately, it can be negative at times.
Yeah.
Especially with thousands of people going unmatched. Look, I'm no better. I'm no different than anyone else. There's a lot of people who are in my in my shoes, not matching. Like I said, I know people that are coming up to 3-4 years, and still haven't matched. They're no lesser than anyone.
Yeah.
So that's why, unfortunately, a lot of them, because of the time, we're always studying, we're always doing something. I can't tell you the amount of 24-hour shifts I've had, amount of late nights and late calls and early mornings, rounding on 30 patients. I mean, the pandemic itself was a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
There's no time with that.
Yeah.
So that's why, unfortunately, a lot of them will de-stress in that way. But for me, it was never my thing.
Yeah.
Never my thing.
Discipline obviously plays a big factor here. Yeah. Where was your discipline instilled from?
Yeah, I think from an early age. So growing up, both my parents worked extremely hard. They didn't have the best of jobs. We grew up, to be honest, we grew up quite poor. I never had the nicest things, the fanciest things. I never was able to do extracurriculars and camps and vacations, none of that. We always lived in a tiny, one like studio apartment in Queens. And then, it wasn't until maybe I was roughly in college, almost med school, where, by the grace of God, my father was able to accomplish what he accomplished and provide for me, provide for my mom so she didn't have to work. But the discipline came from seeing that, because I knew what it felt like being poor. I saw how hard both my parents worked just to put food on the table, just to get those Christmas gifts. Never knew how, but they somehow did it. And then, along the way, as my father became more successful, thankfully, we started, getting nicer things and X, Y, and Z, started living a different life. I saw even the work ethic with that. So for me, I said, I have no excuse in life. My father's given me everything. My parents, both of them have given me everything. I have no excuse in this life to not work hard. It's shame on me and it's a slap in their face. So I always keep that in my mind. I'm way more well off than what, my dad was when he was younger. He didn't have a dad. His
Yeah.
dad died, I think, when my dad was like 4 years old.
Wow.
So he grew up not having a father,
Yeah.
right? So he already was at a disadvantage than me. So I take that at times, and no excuses. There should never be any excuse not to work hard.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said. I take that discipline, I take that work ethic with anything I do. And I always say this: if God wills it, then you should do it. You have, like I said, I'm no special than anyone else.
Yeah.
It's just I'm given an opportunity. There's thousands of people just trying to even get into medical school,
Yeah.
right? Low demographic area, socioeconomic status, right? And unfortunately, they'll never get there. They're no different than me, no lesser than me. I have the opportunity, so shame on me if I don't capitalize and take advantage and work my butt off every day for it.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit all the points. I can't even really say anything to that. And um, you know, anyone that knows you knows that you are discipline personified. I mean, there's the book out there, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and you knock it on the head with regards to how you go about every aspect of your life. And I know personally how impactful your parents have been on you. And so instead of going the route and asking you about some of the people that you look to for inspiration, let me ask you with regards to, as we close this out, just some of the mantras that you live by or some of the things that keep you inspired in terms of messaging.
Yeah. So, really what keeps me going, or one of the mottos I love to live by, is it's always about the hard work. You never know who's going to be watching you. Even when you're at your lowest, you think this is impossible, this is too tough for me, I can't. That's that moment where a lot of people break. And when you stick with it, that's how you succeed. Right. So that's one of the things I like to live by. And really just, mantra wise, or, things I love to live by is, I've said this before, I see a lot of patients that are just sick, bedbound, intubated. They can't breathe on their own. They need a feeding tube just to eat. So how dare I create any excuse for myself to say, oh, I'm too tired to go to the gym today. There's people out there, right, who wish they were in residency. How dare I make the excuse, oh, I'm working too many long hours. Shame on me for that. So those are definitely the things that I like to live by. Like I said, if God wills it, then you do it, because there's someone out there who wishes they were in the position that you were in.
That's right.
So when you keep that in your mind, that should always make you do more and more and more.
You're absolutely right. I always tell people that, regardless of how bad you think your hand is, there's always someone out there who will take your hand gladly, with a smile on their face, and be eternally grateful for it. And if you have that perspective, you realize that you can do anything that you set your mind to. So just to kind of round it out for the audience out there, Andrew's really just kind of a rock star in so many respects. But what I absolutely loved about him, and one of the things that he said earlier on in this, is his ability to embrace failure. He failed his MCATs, he then failed his boards, and then he did not get accepted into a residency. And if you were to ask any person who went down the medical route and gave them, that list of failures, I'm sure they'd all be scratching their heads right now as to how this dude got to where he is today. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for coming on board today. I feel like you left the crowd with an abundance of wisdom. And I'm personally grateful for the message that you brought on to the Mile 40 podcast.
No, I appreciate it. And look, I want to give you your flowers too, because as you always give it to your guests. You deserve those flowers as well. I mean, look at what you're doing. I remember when you first started getting involved with the fitness aspect. I remember very well. I was probably your first supporter, right?
You were right up there.
And, look at what you're doing. Look at the platform that you have, all the money you've raised, all the awareness you've raised, right? For leukemia and cancer, and all the marathons you've done. That's inspiring. When I see that, I'm like, man, I'm about to go do some cardio right now. when I've seen the fundraisers you've done, that inspired me to create my own. Right. So I thank you for doing what you're doing, the platform that you have, because you never know who it can help. Right. And just like your book says, right, break barriers. That's what life's about. That's how you grow in life. So I thank you once again and give you your flowers for everything that you're doing. It's
Thank you, brother.
Great. I love it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.